I hope you can see. I'm completing it too fast, but actually this is a short note and this is very easy, so I'm completing it fastly. But for internal capsule I will take my time. Okay, don't worry about that. So parts of the corpus callosum, which is very simple, you can do it quickly. Okay, so the parts of the corpus callosum, actually I have drawn it. Okay, this is which hemisphere? Now I am confused. Okay, this is maybe left hemisphere. Okay, so left hemisphere, so this is the anterior end and this is the posterior end. This is superiorly, this is inferiorly. Okay, now we are going to learn the parts. So there are 4 parts. One is called rostrum. Okay, rostrum, actually rostrum is not here. Yeah, rostrum is here, so this part is rostrum. Okay, so rostrum, oh no, yeah, I knew I made a mistake. This is the anterior end, this is the posterior end, and this is how the genu looks. So this is the front part and this is the posterior part. Okay, so this is the, this is anterior, this is posterior. Here this part is the rostrum. Okay, here lies the rostrum. This is genu, this is trunk or the body, and this is splenium. Splenium is the broad behind part. Okay, so now comes the genu. Genu is a curved part of the corpus callosum which lies 4 centimeter from the frontal pole. And what happens is that the corpus callosum, these are the fibers. Okay, they are commissural fibers, they're connecting the two brains, but it doesn't look like that. Two things are kept here and a pipe is formed in between, like a pipe is kept in between, and this is how the fibers or the two hemispheres are communicating. Actually there are fibers which is radiating and coming from here. So from the corpus callosum, their fibers are coming from the frontal lobe, occipital lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, and they are all merging and forming a bundle in corpus callosum. So this is just a bundle of all the fibers that is coming from the two hemispheres, and they are communicating with each other. That's all. Otherwise, this is not forming the fibers. Okay, so the fibers that are coming from the frontal lobe, they form like forceps major. Like when we forceps are, forceps, yeah, forceps. So forceps, they form forceps minor. Okay, so they look like forceps minor as they are sweeping from the frontal lobe. So you need to write this for genu. And then comes the rostrum. Rostrum is the extended part or the curved part. Okay, that is the after the curved part, this curved part is the genu, which I have already drawn. Below the curved part you have rostrum. So genu is done, which is the curved part, and then comes the rostrum, which is below the this genu. Okay, and don't learn much about rostrum, but remember this. See, here is the corpus callosum. This forms the floor of the lateral boundary. So just if you want to add some point, you can add rostrum forms the floor of the lateral ventricle, but in general all of this forms the floor of the lateral ventricle. Once you learn the lateral ventricle, you will remember, you can write anterior part of the lateral ventricle. If you want to be more specific, you can write rostrum forms the anterior part, floor of the anterior part of lateral ventricle. Then comes the trunk or the body, which forms the major part, and it lies between genu and the rostrum. And here you can see these kind of fibers are there. This forms these large thick fibers which are moving going across the cerebral hemispheres. They form tapetum, or you can call this as this, or you can also add one point that this forms the this forms the floor of the central part of lateral ventricle, floor of the central part of the lateral ventricle. Okay, and then comes the splenium. Splenium is actually a massive broad part which is lying behind, which lies 6 centimeter in front of the occipital pole, and from here forceps major arises, which is arising from the occipital lobes and the parietal lobe, half of parietal lobe, and thick bundle which forms the forceps major. And in forceps major you will learn forceps major has a important role in lateral ventricle, as forceps major forms a bulbar cavus in lateral ventricle. Lateral ventricle forceps major forms a bulb of the posterior horn of the or posterior part of the lateral ventricle. So you will learn that also about forceps major. And then comes the arterial supply. Arterial supply is by, so see, this is lying in the anterior part. So there should be anterior cerebral artery, anterior communicating artery, and also lying in the posterior part. So there must be posterior cerebral artery. If you have learned circle of Willis, then you will remember this. In choroidal arteries and all, there are branches that is given to circle of Willis. You need to learn that part also. So the anterior part is supplied by anterior cerebral artery and anterior communicating artery. Posterior part is supplied by posterior cerebral artery. What is the function of corpus callosum? So interhemispheric transfer of information, interhemispheric transfer. What? Interhemispheric transfer of information. Okay, now split brain syndrome. Okay, split brain syndrome you might have learned. So in that what happens, either corpus callosum is absent or the corpus callosum is injured, and hence it is so the person has two personalities because both the cortexes are not coordinating with each other. Okay, so that can be asked as the clinical correlation. I have just read through this. I will also talk about something about tapetum. Tapetum actually are white fibers. Okay, these are white fibers which also forms the roof and the lateral wall of the posterior horn. You will learn about tapetum more in lateral ventricle. I will be talking more about that. It is formed by the fibers of trunk and the splenium. So the trunk and the splenium forms these fibers. These fibers are formed by these, and these are not intersected by corona radiata, which is formed. Corona radiata, you will learn that in internal capsule, which is why I wasn't going to talk about tapetum. But just remember, tapetum is formed by trunk and the splenium of the corpus callosum. Write that in this. Okay. Thank you.